kitchen chaos to well-oiled machines. Get ready for newfangled technology and old-school know-how. Stories and a good bit of fun. I'm Simon, and this is Culinary Mechanic. Today I'm joined by Roger Beaudoin of Restaurant Rockstars podcast. Roger, welcome.
Thank you, Simon. Good to be here.
Um, I am super excited to have this conversation with you. I think I mentioned to you earlier that before we started recording that I got a chance to see you talk in Los Angeles this year, and I just really dug it. I love the no nonsense approach that you got to things. So when the opportunity came to bring you on the show, I was like, we got to do this. I
Yay,
just
that's
absolutely
great. Yeah, I had a
so
different approach to running restaurants or approaching restaurants than the typical operator. So I'm glad that was a takeaway or part of it.
absolutely. And we're going to talk about some of that in a little while here. But before that happens, I really love understanding how people got to this industry. So, where did it all begin for you, if you don't mind me starting there?
Well, there's a gap between what really happened in restaurants and hospitality to my beginning, but it does start with hospitality. I was in high school, and my first job was a dishwasher at a private country club. And the members were lawyers and bankers and professional people of all kinds, business owners, that kind of thing. And I was a dishwasher, no big deal. I was probably the dishwasher for 3 or 4 weeks. And then the owners, they saw something special in me and they promoted me to be the bartender. And they taught me how to bartend. You know, they trained me to be the
Awesome.
bartender. And now I'm in the lounge. It's called the 19th hole at most golf courses. And now I'm interacting with these members in a private club on a daily basis. And no one taught me about hospitality. I think I just had something innate about not only being polite, but being personable, getting to know them by name, and treating everyone like they were the most important person in the place, you know? And I quickly found out that that was appreciated, but then all of a sudden the $10 bills are flying at me, and it was very, very lucrative, you know? So it was a point of
Yeah.
pride to deliver hospitality, but to make that kind of money was great. So then, you know, I went to college and I had a variety of jobs. And then I happened to live in Italy in the summer of 1988. I was doing an internship when I was in graduate school. And I ate a lot of pizza, you know, and I was like on every street corner, there's one of these wood-fired pizzerias with these beautiful, you know, mosaic tile ovens, and they're right in the middle of
Right.
the show, and the fire is blazing, and the pizza makers are tossing the dough. And for some reason, that stuck in my mind, and I didn't forget about it because most people like eating pizza, you know. And then a couple of years later, I'm interviewing at a ski resort for a marketing job in the state of Maine. And it was an anomaly because it was a very large ski resort in a very tiny town that had virtually no infrastructure to keep up with the hundreds of thousands of skiers and tourists that came through the winter. And there's like just a couple of restaurants and there was a video rental store, if anyone remembers what those are, you know. But all these businesses, Simon, they had
Uh,
lines out the door and they couldn't handle it, but no one offered all the experiences that I witnessed were marginal experiences. I'd go into a restaurant, the food was just okay, the service was at best. You know, you'd go into the retail stores and it's like no one was personable, no one was delivering hospitality. And all of a sudden, this pizzeria idea pops into my head, and I'm like, wow, you know, I love pizza. This place needs all kinds of restaurants and all kinds of everything. So I wrote this business plan. And all of a sudden, I'm driving through this town, and there's a big piece of property for sale with a big for sale sign on it. It's like 10 acres of land, and it's in an ideal location. So I wanted to build a building on a piece of land that was literally on the way or on the doorstep of this ski resort. So I had all that traffic. The business plan asked for $1 million. And so I started shopping this thing around to commercial banks. And the very first question, as you can imagine, so how many restaurants have you ever owned or managed before? And I'm like, well, I haven't been in the business, but read the business plan. I got a great idea. So I got laughed out of a lot of offices. No one's going to give a kid, you know, with an idea, $1 million loan. Yeah, go start a restaurant. Right, kid, you know? And then after maybe the 12th meeting with bankers, I ran across a banker that literally was a skier at the ski area every single weekend. And he clearly saw the opportunity. He knew that these businesses had lines out the door. And he knew that no one offered anything special in terms of service or food or ambiance or
right.
hospitality. And he's like, yep, Do I think you can run a business? Yeah, you got an MBA. Sure, you can do that. Am I going to give you $1 million? No. He's like, if you scale this project way back, I might give you $150,000. So you cannot start a restaurant on $150,000. At least you can't buy land and build a building and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So there were very little or very few spaces available for lease, but there was one space. It was 6 miles away from the resort on the wrong side of the railroad tracks with a leaky roof and no parking. And literally, there were 3 failed restaurants in that space before I got there. But that was literally all there was. So I got the loan and literally started this place, and it was an overnight success, basically. We built the brick oven. The wood-fired oven was right in the middle of the floor. We trained our staff in hospitality and using your unique personality to really build relationships with each and every guest.
Right.
And we had lines out the door and all that kind of stuff. So fast forward to make this story go away. 2 years later, after leasing this space, there was another piece of land in an even better location. It was 18 acres of land, and the price kept coming down because no one was touching it. And I'm like, this is the opportunity. I went back to the banks, proved I could do what I said I could do, got the $1 million loan, bought the land, built the building, and kept going from there. So that's kind of my hospitality story,
I
at
love
least in
it,
terms
man.
of running restaurants.
I love it. I think that there's so many fundamentals there that just matter, right? Um, I I love this I love this topic of hospitality because it always seemed to me, and I think that very much like what you said, it's innate. I think to me, it's like I love feeding people. I like
Hmm.
taking care of people,
Yes, that's what it's all
and
about, for sure. The word care definitely has to come out. Caring is a
absolutely.
huge part of that.
I think about like those late nights in the restaurants and it's like that last table. And I remember working for managers and sous chefs, mostly sous chefs, because the chef doesn't stay to the end too often anymore. And they'd just be like pissed off because they want to go home. And so the cooks were pissed off. And I'd be like, but there's got to be a reason they showed up at 9:58, and
Hmm.
I get
Hmm.
it. It sucks. And I hope that they're decent people, right? And so I would always listen for that interaction. Like, what did the servers say? Oh, they're nice people. They just been on the road all night and whatever that is. And so taking care of them. And so I knew that as I became a leader, like that was important to me, right? It was important to me that like if we're cooking, we're cooking. And
Hmm.
if somebody decided that they want to give you money,
Yes, thank you.
do your damn job, but not just do it. Like do it with love, right? Because that's how at the end of the day, that's how you make money in this industry is you take care of people, you show them an experience that matters, you treat them like human beings. They're not just transactions. Those little teeny tiny things that sometimes get lost, right? Um, Also to me typify those restaurants that come and go, whether they're the Michelin thing now or when
Hmm.
they remember Zagat, remember the Zagat
I do.
guy?
Yeah,
Like,
the Zagat guide. Yep,
I thought
absolutely
that was
do.
a great. I love the way that was very clear in the fact that it had a lot of numbers to it, like up to 30 or something, right? So you could see what an 18 was, and you also knew what a 30 was, but all those things, I think that sometimes you could get these restaurants and they had all these great high scores and they had stars from the newspapers, and in 18 months they're gone. And so that's a business issue sometimes, but also I think that there's got to be love to it.
Well,
So,
the details
you know,
matter, Simon, as you know. And I've always said there's 1,000 details to running a great restaurant. But I think you struck a point because, yeah, it sucks. Okay, the restaurant closes at 9 or 9:30 or 10 o'clock, and it's 2 minutes of, and there's, maybe one table that's ready to leave, and then all of a sudden a party walks in, and the first thought is, oh, really? And people get upset about that, but it's about consistent experiences. You have to deliver the same consistent, great experience to them, treat them just as well as the first people that walk through the door. Because one, it is about caring, but two, it's like, what's the opportunity cost of turning that table away because they walked in and making them feel like, oh, I'm bothering these people by showing up,
right?
And who knows, you might have turned in a customer for life because you gave them a great experience when you were ready to close. And then now with the power of social media, it's like, who knows what the exponential effect is of treating that party
Absolutely.
great. into the future, the lifetime value of the customer and all that, on top of the pride in just serving them and giving them that consistent experience. But yeah, we've all been there. It's like, and we used to train our team in that. The business is not closed until it's literally closed. And if someone walks in the door at 1 minute after 10 o'clock, it's like we're serving them, you know? So
Right.
don't tear down your line just yet, you know? And that's how the show must go on.
I don't know. For me, like, uh, I come up from a family where my grandmother was, they were migrant pickers coming up out of Mexico, but the stories that I heard as a kid about my mother's childhood was always there was always a friend along, and it didn't matter how little they had, grandma always had enough,
Oh, yeah.
and I saw
Yeah.
it
Right.
growing up. We would go out to California and
Hmm.
we'd stop in, we were there visiting for a week or whatever, and we'd be there, and like my uncle or my aunt or a cousin from 500 miles away would show up with two other people, and my grandmother would just go, okay, well, there's no room at the table, but pull up a chair and we'll feed you. And like that to me is that's what it's all about, like
You know, that's a
feeding people and
culture.
taking um
Yeah, culture of
and
hospitality for sure is what you're talking about because yeah, you want to treat people like family when
yeah.
you have a restaurant, you know, and all that just runs really, really deep. It's not about a transaction like you said. It's about everyone that walks through the door is family. It's like we want to treat you right. We want to give you a great experience. We want you to come back again, and that's just and we can't wait to see you again so we can recognize you and make you feel special.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
Funny, I don't know if you can always train that, you know.
We talked about
Um,
it all the time.
yeah, you,
Pre-shift
you you
exercises in
you
our
hope that
restaurants
you
were
hope that people
different.
grab it, right?
Absolutely.
Um,
Yep.
I don't know about you, but I did not get into the restaurant business to spend all my time in a cramped little office. I love being in the kitchen, out on the floor. And if you're nodding your head right now, I want to introduce you to an amazing company called Starfish. Look, I've gotten to know their CEO, Jordan, recently, and what they're building really impresses me. They're using AI to read your P&L, and they're going to email you actionable insights every week so you can lower your costs and increase revenue. Best part is you don't have to spend time digging through your P&Ls, poring over reports in that cramped little office. Starfish is going to do that for you so you can get back to the part of the business that you love. If you're interested, go to their website, use starfish.com. That's USE starfish.com. And tell them Simon sent you. But all right, so how does that equate to, like, how does that turn a corner and you find yourself in a podcast? I mean, you've been doing this podcast for a while,
Yeah, about
you
six
know?
years or so. Well, I got to be
Awesome.
honest with you. I didn't know what a podcast was when I started. And all of this, you know, I credit my wife all the time because she's the brains of the operation and I just show up. I'm the content guy. Yeah, I can start and run a restaurant and be successful at it. But this digital world, you know, back then, so we sold the businesses, you know, in 2014. We had several restaurants. We sold them all because my wife's like, I've been living in this town too long. It's like we're just gonna get an RV and cruise the country and end up somewhere with the kids. And that's exactly what happened. So we sold our
Nice.
house and we sold the restaurants and all that stuff. And it was her idea to start this company called Restaurant Rockstars. And it was multifaceted in that her idea was you've got so much restaurant knowledge in your head. You've been so successful with these concepts. It's like we can come up with online courses to teach other people the systems, the foundational
Right.
elements that make a restaurant successful. So we spent a lot of time doing that. And then she said, it's also about giving back and you want to help others improve their business. So let's start a podcast. I'm like, what's a podcast? I didn't even know. So then
Love it.
she's like, this is how it's going to go. So literally when I started doing riffs, okay? And she's like, just talk about something that you know can help another operator. No guests involved, just record something. So I did a bunch of those and then somehow I stumbled upon a guest to have on the show. And she laughs at me to this day because I literally scripted it out and I sent it to the person. I'm going to say this and you're going to say that. And I'm going to say, she's like, are you kidding me? That was my very first recorded episode. And yeah, it was kind of a joke. And then that sort of evolved over time. So yeah, 420 released episodes now over the years. And, you know, and the guests are really interesting people. They're at every level of the industry, but it's all about guest service, finance, marketing, technology, anything that, we can do to improve the business. And then you saw me speak in Los Angeles. That's one of the things I really enjoy besides podcasting. I like sharing the knowledge. I like doing
Nice.
anything I can to talk to people and help them with today's restaurant challenges. And I'm really glad that there was this thing called the pandemic. And as devastating as that was to the industry, it was a real eye opener for me because I told you I sold all my businesses in 2014. And then in 2019, I had the brilliant idea of buying another restaurant. And then I can't see around corners, And then a couple of months later in March, what do you mean we're shut down by the state? And what do you mean like there's this thing going on and there's no more customers? And like, how are we going to deal with this? But now I can clearly say that I've gone through all those challenges that today's operators have gone through. And if you've survived it, and if you still have the passion for this business, and if you're still building it and trying to grow it, I was in that place. And I hate the word pivot because it's been so overused, but that business that we owned during the pandemic, that thing got pivoted 5 or 6 or 10 times just to make it survive, and just
Right.
to get to the other side and then we ended up selling that and it all worked out fine. It was 2 years of pain like any other operator, but we got through it. We
Right.
went through all those challenges. And now I believe operators are more resilient for that. And hopefully nothing like that ever happens again. But I think those operators out there are stronger for it, like I was.
Yeah, I mean, knock on wood, right?
Hmm,
That we never see something like that again.
exactly.
I
It's
think
crazy.
that for me, um, I call it the blocking and tackling. It's the basics, right? I think
Hmm.
that for
Yeah.
me, coming out of COVID, coming out of that pandemic, it became whenever I have problems in restaurants, that's what I go back to anyway. It's like, wait, let's stop. Let's just make sure that we have all the people in the place, all the product in the place, and then let's go through the basics of doing this. And I think there's just been no better time to teach people like, hey man, stop, slow down, right? Like no
Yeah.
hair on fire. Let's 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 go slow. Let's get it right. Let's get make sure that your food is good, your people are happy and really like able to just one foot in front of the other, right? And I think
Hmm.
that those restaurants that
Yep.
have been able to do that, to just slow down and do their thing, like those are the restaurants we're seeing. Oh, look, you got two. Oh, now you got three. I'm working with a guy right now, and he's got two taquerias, and he's about to have probably by this time next year, he will have five operations happening. I was like, what are you
Awesome.
doing? He goes,
Good.
I
So great.
can't say no to these opportunities.
Oh, yeah.
People are
Yeah. You see
bringing me
them.
sites, and people are bringing
Oh,
me. They're giving
yeah.
me ideal terms on leases. He goes, and their locations are amazing. I can't say no to it. I just don't know how to get there. And so, other story, but I'm helping him put some
Excellent.
infrastructure in his company, and I was
Fantastic.
like, we just need to figure out how to get you like enough people in the right places
Right.
so that you can operate. Because this guy's just got it right.
Hmm.
You walk into his taqueria, and it's just like you say, like you feel like, well, first of all, he's like, I run a professional party. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, when you walk into my place, the music's right, it's the right volume, and my people are taught that they look up from what they're doing and they say good morning. And we try to really make sure that everybody feels good about where they are and it stays clean, and I was like, that's amazing.
More of
He
those
goes, and people
details we're
love us.
talking about, right?
Totally.
You got to
Yep.
have the crystal clear
Yep.
details. And I think you started by saying slow down, right? And sometimes you got to take a step back because as owners, even
Totally.
GMs, you get so close to your place that you miss some of those details that the guests see. And you almost have to take a step out the door and look at your place from a whole new perspective and put your guest hat on. What do they see? What are they experiencing?
Yep.
And be objective about it, and then start over, And I even taught my team. It's like a lot of restaurants have people come through the back door because they don't want the customers. I like to call them guests, see the employees. I never understood that. In my biggest restaurant, I had 55 employees, and I'm like, I want you all to come through the front door. I want you to put your guest hat on. I want you to see what the guest is going to see, fix what's
Mm.
broken, and they were empowered to do so. And then they took pride in that too because we didn't want the guests to see anything that was amiss. And if they could fix it, they did, and if they couldn't, they'd bring it to our attention. We'd fix it immediately before the start of service. And that's just a different way of looking at the business, like I said earlier.
Totally. No,
You know?
but I love it. I worked in one place that we had an open kitchen, and
Yes, I love those.
the owner would sit at the bar, and it
Yeah.
would face the hood.
Uh-huh.
And
Yep.
he's like, "Have you hired somebody tall recently?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Damn it, Simon, there are fingerprints on the bottom of that hood above the grill." And I was like, "Yeah, my new grill guy's like 6'4". Well,
Oh.
he's hanging on the hood, he says.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I was like, I'll be damned. So
He's
I
hanging
went
on
and
the hood. He's doing chin-ups on it.
or something, man.
Yeah.
And so I went and I first grabbed my sous chef and I said, "Okay, I need you before we open every day to walk a circle. Like you got to inspect the floors to make sure that the dishwasher has done a good job of his janitorial duties anyway. But I
Mhm.
want you to stop right here." And he says, "Why right here?" I said, "Because this is where the fucking owner sits and is
Absolutely.
blasting me."
Yeah,
I said, "But
exactly.
right,
And the
like I'm
guests
getting
can see
killed
that
here."
too. Yep.
But also, if the owner sees it, then there's guests, there's regular bar patrons who are going to look up
Hmm.
and they're going to see this. And this is not what and he was like, "Oh, wow." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah,
Every detail
exactly."
matters. Yep.
Right.
Fresh coat of
Um,
paint, no trash in the parking lot, no burned out light bulbs, that kind of stuff. There's a million things like that.
yeah,
Mm.
that restaurant, because we did our own janitorial, there was no service coming in. It taught me to like, you start to understand how long it takes for like the grime to build up on the edge of where you walk. You know what I'm talking about? Like when
Absolutely
you
do.
walk through something
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's like, "Oh, wait, I haven't been here in 4 days." Oh. And so it's like being able to just see when you want to talk about details. Like it's just getting down to the nitty gritty of like, huh. And the guest sees this. Okay, let's start here,
And
right?
clean. Everything has to be clean. The bathroom
Absolutely.
thing. I mean, what a pet peeve it is. I mean, we used to have a duty roster where people would check everything like every 10 minutes and it was a rotation. But bathrooms, everyone talks about bathrooms, right? But how annoying is it when a lady goes in and she leans up against close to the counter to like look in the mirror to put her lipstick or makeup on or whatever when she's in the bathroom, and all of a sudden her skirt or her pants or whatever is soaking wet because the edge of the counter is wet. Like
Yep.
these are the details that all these things mean a great experience, or I'm not going back there again.
Yeah.
Even if the food was great, it's like, oh, that's annoying. All these details matter.
Yeah. You just made me think of something. There was this restaurant that opened up here in Seattle, and it was probably 12, 13 years ago that it opened. And man, my wife and I, we were hitting this place like once every 2 weeks. The cocktails were good. The food was simple, but
Love
really,
it.
really good. We went there for a
Uh-huh.
birthday, somebody
Nice.
else's birthday. And then I don't know what happened. I think life, we just got busy. So we hadn't been there for about 2 years. And I went there with a friend. And I remember going into the restroom and I went, huh, something is different. And it wasn't as fresh as it used to be, right? Like it just didn't like sparkle. And then I walked out and it just caused me to look left after I left that restroom. And that was like a direct shot into the kitchen. And I was like, this is a lot dirtier than it used to be. So I went and I sat down and I said to the server when she came back, I said, "Has this restaurant been sold?" And she's like, "Yeah, about 8 months ago." And I
No
was like,
kidding. Yeah.
"Gotcha.
It's all
Weird."
different now.
And I gave him one more chance about it, maybe
Yeah.
8, 9 months later.
Hmm.
And I just knew I was like, no, if your priority isn't on like the fresh, snappy feel of that restroom and like the visible cleanliness from where the guests are walking through the side of your dining room into the kitchen, I probably don't want to eat your food.
Good point. Yep. That's how most
Yeah,
people feel for sure.
right. Yeah, and I knew it, and I think they're still in business, but they probably don't need mine at this point. So, but um, like I said, I saw you in LA, and you said something that just like I remember. I don't know. I think I was at the back of the crowd, and I was surveying kind of, I was listening to you, and I was also like, all right, what am I going to hit next? And then you said something about using spreadsheets rather than necessarily a piece of tech when you're looking at costs. And I thought, and immediately I turned around, I scoped, I walked all around to the left side of the audience, and I sat down and I was in for the rest. And I'll tell you why. A, I am a firm believer that as great as all the technology is out there, you got to know how to crawl before you're running,
Thank you. I
right?
absolutely agree with you. And
You
that's
know,
probably the point I was making. I'm really sure because I ran my business with spreadsheets and I really thought it was so important to know the fundamentals with a pencil, paper, and a calculator versus some kind of tech. And I've tried tech and I've not had good experiences with certain pieces of technology and it's onerous and it's hard to onboard, but it's like whether you find a great piece of tech or not, I totally agree. Know how to do it on paper so you understand what inventory is, how to calculate your food and beverage costs, and all those sort of things. And you don't need some fancy piece of technology to help you with that. And once that
right?
system's in place, it's done. You do the homework up front. There's the system. So yeah, I'm a big believer in that still.
Yeah, I love the tech. I'm a geek for it, right? Like I just I dig it. I love some of the reports. I've worked with a couple of the systems, and I'm like, what are these reports? And so I remember
Yeah,
finding
it
a
can be
guy
baffling.
who, yeah, and I remember finding I was working with See To It and Compete, which is now owned by Restaurant 365, which is the big
Yep,
boy, right?
I
And
know
that's a
that company.
Cadillac.
Oh, sure, I know
And
restaurants.
I
Suck.
remember I remember like looking at these reports, and I talked to the head of the accounting firm we were working with in this company, and I said, "Tell me, like, what are all these things?" He's like, "Don't worry about those." I was like, "But what are they?" And he goes, "Those are for the restaurants that are probably somewhere in the 40 and up range." I said, 40 and up. He said, "Yeah, 40 units and up." He goes, "Because they look at trends in a whole different way than you ever have, and
Hmm.
they're able
I hear
to
you.
extract data across brands." He goes, "They don't even need to look at individual days anymore. They're looking at series of Sundays, across 40 restaurants." And I was like, "Huh, okay." He goes, "You don't need any of that." I'm like, "Cool, good to know." So when I was teaching my chefs, I'd be like, "Don't worry about, see this column here? Don't worry
Don't
about
use it.
those."
Yep, I hear you.
Right? Like
Yeah,
focus on the
yeah.
basics. And I think that there's huge use to be had, and so there's some greater, you can go from the basics and slowing down to running and really running your operation well with a number of those pieces of tech. But I think at the end of the day, like you said, understanding the basics of how much did I pay for all my product? How much am I selling for it? How much am I selling it for? And really getting it there. I mean, I even like when I'm teaching sous chefs and I'm working with young folks who were wanting to get to that sous chef level. They all want to know, "Hey, help me how to help me understand food cost." And I was like, "Cool, let's go on the walk-in." They're like, "Oh, no, 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 I want to learn how to run the numbers." And I was like, "I don't think you understand what you're talking about." But the reason why is we all hold it behind like a black curtain. It's like, "Oh, the numbers, the numbers, the numbers." No, the numbers come from knowing how much cheese is on the cheese shelf, knowing the state of your herbs in the bucket, knowing that you got your meat delivery and it got rotated, and there's no cryovacs that are broken, and putting hands on product every day, and knowing that the guy who's prepping for his station is not getting 4 days ahead, and he's going to end up having crap to serve, right?
Now you're
Like,
talking about a feel, Simon. You got to have an intimate feel with your product, how
absolutely.
it turns over. Do you have a waste or spoilage problem? Are you accurately ordering? Are you finding the sweet spots basically in your business? And I think that it's really hard to do that with technology. You put a machine behind something and then suddenly it's like that personal feel that you have, the understanding of watching dollars come in and dollars go out, and all of those things are kind of lost. And I guess that's why I'm a big believer in knowing how to do it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm with you
Yeah.
100%. Like I say, that was the statement where I was just like, "Oh, I need to wait. Hold on, go and sit down and really lock in." So you
Yeah.
got me. Um, I think we've discussed so many like aspects of the business. Have you got a favorite? Like, is there a part of this business that just makes your blood rush a little more than other things?
Yeah, and that goes right back to the basics of every restaurant has a menu. And I consult, I personally coach with restaurants and I ask them what business are you in and what are you selling? That's my first question when I consult with a client, and it's not a trick question, but as you can imagine, what I hear most often is, "Oh yeah, I'm a restaurant owner, a general manager, and we sell food and drink." And I go, "Stop. No, when I was in this business, I was not in the business of running a restaurant. I was in the business of running a business. And my products weren't food and beverage, that sort of thing. They were entertainment, consistency, and a whole lot of good times." But let's go back to the details. What really lights me up is the impact a menu can have on your bottom line profit. And in my coaching practice, because how I ran my restaurants, I've identified the fact that lots of restaurants, every restaurant has a menu with different categories on it. We've got appetizers, we've got soups and salads, we've got burgers and sandwiches, we got entrees, some of us have pizzas, we all have desserts. Those are all the categories. And I've identified the fact that in just about every category, in a lot of restaurants, lower profit items are more popular, bigger sellers than higher profit items. They're taking sales away from what you could and would like to be selling. You're filling your seats and you're wondering, gee, why is my bank account not growing? And so I developed this template. Again, it's another old school tool, but it's on my computer. And all I do is, it's so important to regularly cost out your menu, especially during times of inflation and volatile markets. You need to know what it costs you to serve every menu item to a customer. And I often find out that some of the dishes my clients are serving, they're losing money on, just because things have spiked. And the problem is, the value proposition always has to be there. You can't continually raise prices on something and price your customers out of the market. But what you can do is dial in your menu for maximum profit. So to make this story very short, this template identifies if you've got your menu costed out. This template ranks every category from most profitable item to least profitable item. It calculates the profit spread difference in between items. And then when you go to the point of sale system and plug in a certain volume of sales over 6 months or a year, I like the more data, the better. So if you don't change your menu but once a year, you plug in a year's data, and it literally shows you what's popular, what's selling, and the profit you're losing every time this sells versus that. And on the appetizers, I see restaurants losing 3, 4, $5 every time this appetizer sells versus that one in potential profit. Entrees, 10, 12, 13, $15 every time this sells. And you add that up over a year's time when lower profit items take all these sales away. And okay, case in point, last 2 clients that I worked with on this, $3 million operations, lunch and dinner, busy lunch and dinner places,
Right.
approximately 3 million. One's 2.9, the other's like 2.8, whatever. And we did this
Right.
exercise. And I showed each of them that over the last year, they lost a potential profit in excess of $340,000 in lost potential profit. And the first question is, well, yeah, not everybody wants to buy the most profitable item, and they're not always going to sell. But the point I'm making here is you can tighten that menu up so that everything is within a dollar profit, not 3, 4, $5, not 10, 12, $13. And when you do that, when you simplify your menu, and then you have strict portion controls in place, and if you have a trained staff, you'd be amazed at what you can do to impact the high labor costs we're paying today, the inflation, the volatile markets. If you dial in your menu profit, you're going to put a whole lot more money to the bottom line. And who doesn't want that? So that lights me up, as you can tell.
Nice.
I mean, it's just
Yeah.
awesome. And so many restaurants don't get that granular with the details. And it's like I ask them, what are your most popular items? Oh, this flies out of the kitchen, or my customers would kill me if I took that off the menu. And then I say, what are your most profitable items? And then suddenly the gears kind of grind to a halt, and I'm like,
Yeah.
case in point. It's like, how much money are you losing in potential profit because you don't know what's profitable?
Yeah.
So anyway, I love coaching restaurants on that.
I absolutely love. I mean, first of all, I asked this question because there's nothing better than finding like that thing that like gets your juices flowing, right? Like
Uh-huh.
you can
Yeah.
just you just hear the cadence in the way you're speaking, everything. I'm staring at you on the computer here, and so for those of you who can't see Roger right now, like there's a little more blood coming through his neck, and things are pumping, and
Yeah.
it's great because it's one of those things where I'm a passion guy. I think that being passionate about what you're doing is super important and excited. And I think that those are the moments when you can get excited about something, and help people find their ahas.
I love that. Yeah,
Um,
the eureka moments for sure.
Absolutely,
Hmm.
and
Yep.
it's also I think it's just so important to like understand. Now going to what you're talking about with the menu, my favorite example of the wrong way to do this is what about that item? Oh, that we sell a ton of those. I'm like, do you really? That's an obscure little thing there, and it's never like the T-bone steak that we're talking about. We're talking about some off-cut of
Something
meat and the
unusual.
chef's,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Mm.
and come to find out, it's like that's the chef's dish that he loves, but when you get into the POS system and you run the report, you're like, hey man, you sold 9 of those last week. So now you're either amazingly like crystal ball guy and you have one a day ready
Yeah.
to go,
Uh-huh.
or you're not serving the best possible product. But let's stop talking about vanity and let's talk numbers.
And
This
they're
is what I tell
bringing in
people.
ingredients maybe just for that dish that doesn't go into
Oh,
anything else, right? It's no cross utilization of ingredients.
yeah, it's
Wow.
the numbers just don't lie.
Thank
Well,
you. That is absolutely true.
I just and I don't care. Honestly, I don't care whether somebody's got grid paper on a clipboard or
Mm-mm,
whether they're
neither.
using Excel
Yep, whatever
or
works.
Google Sheets or whatever that is nowadays, or they're using the tippity top of the costing programs that are out there. You just got to know what the numbers are. Um,
Yeah,
Man, we've covered
agreed.
some ground today, Roger. Um, so here's my question. This has been a bit of an obsession for me lately.
Hmm.
What's a win in your day? Like,
Uh, a win in my day is making a difference in an operator's business or their life. If I can share a piece of information, a nugget, a process, an idea, something that's really worked for me that works in another operator's business, that lights me up.
nice. I love it. All right. Well, in the show notes, we're gonna put how to find Roger Beaudoin. If you're interested in talking to him for some consulting, perhaps the restaurant academy training system would be pretty cool. Um, or how about this? Check out the Restaurant Rockstars podcast. You will not be disappointed. Once again, Roger, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate the time and playing in the sandbox with other passionate restaurateur people are is definitely one of the joys in life right now. So
Same here. I love talking shop with people just like yourself that have a passion for the business and are in it for the same reason, in it to win it and help others win it too.
yeah, man. To all you out there, keep listening. Please drop a review, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, a like, a follow, a subscribe, even YouTube. I got the YouTube thing happening now.
Excellent.
I would really appreciate everybody checking it out and continuing to make that number grow because it seems to grow every week, and I appreciate it. So to all you out there, thank you so much. Have a great one. See you on the other side.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks for your audience tuning in.
Yeah, man.